So hi, good evening. Welcome to this little fold-off demo fold demonstration demo. Can someone write a comment if you can hear me or not? I'm not very certain about that. Hello? Anybody out there? Okay, we will wait for a few seconds longer so everyone can tune in. So the ones who actually bother to watch me. Oh my, the usual suspects. Well, I think we should just start. Even if nobody can hear me, I can hear me. If you have any questions, anything related to this origami demonstration, just please ask. I will try to keep up with the comments if there are any. So, what I will show you tonight is this tessellation here. Some people have asked me how to fold it, how the technique is, and so on. And you see, it's quite from the first look, it's very complicated. Thank you to the lady for sharing my video. So this seems to be very complicated, but it's only a matter of practice and getting used to it, to getting to see the shapes and so on. And we'll demonstrate to you how I fold it. And you can actually, there's a photo tutorial which I made on Flickr, which I will link after the video. Okay, let's start. Okay, the first central twist is done, and that's actually the whole thing that keeps it together. We will use these paper clips now, or in a little bit, At least I use them. They are not necessary, but I use them to get everything, keep everything where it belongs. So it's easier for many beginners even to do that. What I'm doing here is I'm making the central for 6 rhombii, and I'm in some way pre-folding them or pre-arranging them before I actually squash them. It's a little hard to see because the camera is just on my vision. So this is the time when I use the paper clips just to keep everything where I want it to be. Then let's... So this is not a tutorial or anything, or it's maybe at most a fold along. So I'm not going into details, but I just want to show you how I do it, just for the fun of it. So again, if you have any questions, please ask them. I keep an eye on the chat, if possible. Perfect. At least someone can hear me. Danke, Jose. Or or Josie. I'm probably pronouncing it terribly wrong, so it's so I'm excusing in advance for that. So this is these are the central 6 rhombii, which you just squash now one by the other, just to avoid some inaccuracies or whatever the word is for that. So it must be as precise as possible, at least for me. So, so this is the most difficult part. The rest is just an easy exercise for the follow folder. So, but actually, it's a little bit more complicated. So just let me fix these papers here, these folds. So now I flip over, and there's these little flaps here, which you can open and make a triangle twist. This is what keeps the shapes together. We will see more of them later. And I have to say, I'm sounding very German tonight for some reason, even though I am German. My English is not very good. So hopefully no one English is offended by my strange language tonight. So, nothing changed on the front. So now I can remove these paper clips. All 6 of them. And what I now want to do is just to add another ring of rhombii. So it's a bit tricky, of course, because all the rhombii want to fold themselves in some sense, and because the camera is actually in front of the tessellation, so I can't really see it. But I try. So, now would you focus, please? A row. There we go. So what I'm forming right now is just another hexagon twist, at least half of it, as you see here on the back. So this is half of a hexagon twist, but we're not completing it right now. So this one will be another of those. So this is a good time to add another row of paper clips, actually, because you see these folds want to become undone, which is not favorable, in my opinion, at least. So I'm going back and forth here from front to back side of the paper, just like that. Just to make sure that this what is forming on the other side is actually a rhombus, and not a paper stone. So let's see. More paper clips. So some people think these paper clips are superfluous, but I find them quite useful, especially for beginners, because these folds want to get undone really easily, and then you just don't know anymore where these rhombi go. So I would say they are essential. So again, if you have any questions, please ask them, so it doesn't get too boring, so me not saying anything. So another paper clip here. And then the final rhombus. Just like that, very easy. So this one is so this one goes in there, and then the final paper clip. So this is the back side now. You see these are the triangle twists here. We will be doing something to the middle in the end. So there's a slight difference. So you see this hexagon twist here on the left side will be on the other side in the end. So now we just need to squash them. These rhombi folds, or rhombus folds. I never know how to spell them actually. So if anyone knows how to pronounce the plural of rhombus, then you're welcome to tell me. So sometimes it happens that these rhombuses don't get really precise, so I use my thumbnail to adjust the tip a bit. So now we're done with the central pattern, and the rest is just repeating all these patterns. But of course, it gets more complicated because the further we move out, so from the middle to the rim, let's say, the more complicated it gets because there are more and more folds in the way. So we have to try to avoid that as much as possible. Okay, back to the back. What we're now going to do is to completely hexagon folds and adding some triangle folds. So one goes here. This will be a triangle fold. We will be folding this later. So first I want to just fold the hexagon folds. So they are very, very important because they actually keep the whole thing together in the sense that they act like a screw almost. So you can turn it a bit, and it acts like a screw that gets the paper closer together. So once this hexagon twist is done, we're proceeding just by adding the triangle twist, just so. Like I like to use my thumb here. It's very soft-ish, and just pressing it down so the triangle twist should be quite precise. Okay, so we're now repeating that very process, another 5 times. So adding the triangle thingy, and then the hexagon. So it all may seem very complicated, but it's something that you learn the more you do it. Just a matter of practice. You at some point you begin to see all these shapes, and then it's actually quite easy. But it's time demanding, and I've seen people folding this and who were totally absorbed into folding it and just forgetting time, because it's a complicated, or at least a demanding process. So this third triangle. And what I'm doing here is using my other fingers here from the back to just adjust the paper layers. Thank you to John for letting me know that we can, Peter. I hope it's about hearing me. So adding this. Just giving that a thumbs up. Perfect. So I'm turning the hexagon. So it doesn't matter in which order you do it, either turning the hexagon and then squashing down the triangle, or in the other direction. It's not important. But somehow the direction in which you progress is very important. If I were to progress in the other direction, counterclockwise, it would be much harder to do. So this is something you should try. If you get stuck at some point with the tessellation, just try to reverse the order. That happens quite often to me. And for some reason, I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but for some reason, if I do some tessellations and do them again, then I'm always switching the orientation for some reason. So if I begin here with a clockwise turning a hexagon fold, then it's because I begin here with a counterclockwise turning one. I don't know, it's very strange, very stupid. So sometimes these folds are a bit stubborn. So camera doesn't want to focus apparently. Maybe I should be making makeup tutorials, and would be better in focusing a camera. However, so twisting the twist around and then opening the triangle. This is also why I'm using quite small paper. So I prefer to fold small, because if the paper gets too big, then I can't reach the middle. And that's very annoying to me, because then I can't really fold. Because you see, I'm folding with two hands, actually, more or less. So that is something which I try to avoid. And this is actually the reason why I usually don't finish bigger tessellations. Because if it's too big, then I just make some stupid mistake, and then it's all, well, for the garbage can. So again, we're doing this one more time. This is now the 5th time we're doing these twist things and opening the triangle. And then the last one is a little bit more tricky, because it usually implies that more folds are opening, like so. So we have to now do what we did to the previous folds twice. Oops. And then again for this one. So adding this little foot here on the triangle fold will allow me to lay everything flat. So this one wants to open immediately, so we just squash it and then turn the hexagon. So now we're done with this process, so we can return to the front, and we see that that a lot of flaps have been generated by the process, and all of them have to be turned into rhombii folds. So what we're doing now, you see this, this is actually something like a triangle twist. So if you would just open it and squash it, it would be a triangle. But if you push here at this flap, then it opens to a rhombus fold. Just going to flatten it. And just proceed around the whole thing. So as you see, it's quite repetitive, but it doesn't make it easier. So if something like this happens, so here it happens that folds don't want to lay flat, and I use just the back of the paper clip from the back and just try to flatten it a bit. Usually works. That works, of course, only with elephant hide. It doesn't work very well with copy paper or other papers that are easy to tear, let's say. That's why I always recommend elephant hide, because there's no way you can even rip it. So, for example, if you have this elephant hide here, it's very hard to rip. So that's a good property, or a property you would look for in a paper, at least for tessellations. Of course, you can use baking paper. I think, what's his name? Robin is using baking paper, or something which is called Butterbrotpapier, which means which is a special paper for bread and butter, which is very delicate. I don't like to use it because it so easily rips, and if you make a mistake, it's just done. Or at least I'm done with. So we're now approaching the end of the round, of the of the circle, let's say. So again, this does not really want to lie flat. So this is the next round, and we are now going to add these rhombies here in these corners. So you see these two, and we're adding the third one, which would make a pattern just like this one here. So how are we going to do that? Just by making them. So it's brute force, actually. So we're just opening them and just see what happens to the other folds. So again, if you want a more detailed description of this all, I'm going to link a photo tutorial to this one, which most of you probably already know. So now we have it. That's our pattern here. Oh, better said, this one here. What we're now going to do is we have to add on the back. It's always advisable to add all the triangle folds at at any time you can. This is one time. So you see we have this pattern of triangles here, and we want to repeat it here. The flaps are there, so we open them. Because if you don't do that, then it could interfere with the quality of the folding later when we return. So this is what we're doing on the back, and then we return to the front. Now I have to see. So again, it's very important. The direction is very important in which you proceed. And I think it was this way. Well, let's try. I'm just curious here. Which one will work better? No, it's the other one, I think. So, the camera would focus. Arrow. Stupid. So, yeah, that's the reason why I should have proceeded in the other direction, because now this hexagon thing wanted to open up, and that's something I like to avoid. So we just do finishing that one and then proceed in the other direction. Because who cares about directions anyways? Because I actually always mix up left and right, because for mathematicians like I am, it's the same. Can even prove it. So never give me directions for anywhere to go, because I won't find it. And that's for certain. So now I'm proceeding in the other direction. You see, it's much easier because these... no. Either I'm stupid or it's... Anyways, I'm taking the other direction if it's too hard to take the other direction. But not before you squash down these triangles here. Zack. The other side. See you on the other side. So. So again, here is the place where everything wants to fold in every direction. So we have to go to the back to just adjust the paper a bit. And again, we're doing this by introducing this half hexagon thing here, like we have seen in the beginning already. And then on the front, it's all right now. So we can squash these rhombuses, rhombi. Okay, dann wieder die. Sorry, that was German. Sounds awkward, but it's actually true. Sorry for that. So what I wanted to say is just that I have to return to the other side to squash down these triangles. Again, and then we're actually doing always the same. If I can find the direction in which we wanted to go. I think it was that one. Yes. So again, we're just completing these 4 rhombuses to a 6 rhombus star, let's say. And again, these hexagon folds are very important because they're not only stable, but they are often useful to put the paper down to make it flat. So never forget to fold these triangles. So squash them like annoying bugs or mosquitoes. Never forget that. So of course, you can do these half hexagon twists on the front too. It's the same technique to some extent, but it's easier on the back side. So there we go. So and towards the end of the round, it's actually a little bit more tricky because this extra excess paper wants to fold up and gets in the way, or starts to get in the way. So, and now the only thing we need to do is to add another of these half hexagon twists, which we have to do if we want or not. That's just not negotiable. So, but that implies something on the other side too. So, and you see what happens now. It's this triangular hole here is the backside of a triangle twist, which wants to fold up, but we cannot really flatten it, which we will do just now. Okay, so that was almost everything now. And it only took about 30 minutes, so that's a quick and easy one. Okay, as you see, you can proceed the paper or extend the pattern a little bit, which we will do one final round. This one is extended a little bit more than what I show you, or what I will show you now. So don't worry, it's all the same. It's easier on the border, actually, because there's only very little paper left. So as you see, we just need to make these half hexagons and full hexagons, and then there will be another set of hexagon twist here, and so on. We just go around like we did for all the other rounds. What I also like to do is sometimes to just sharpen these triangle twists, because they are what so they are the ones that keep these rhombi together. So the better the triangle is, the closer together these rhombi are. Okay. So we now have to open a few of these triangles. So that's the only one that was missing, actually. And what we're doing is just adding this hexagon here. And adding this little foot here to this triangle. Which doesn't work, because it never works like I plan. So but don't be worried, usually it's no problem. If you get stuck at one side, then turn to the other one, because it's usually easier to fix on the other side. So what we have to do here now is, because this one is open now, we have to do this one as well. So, and this one is actually the second half hexagon twist, which we needed. Oops. So this is also a good time to use these paper clips again, just to keep the paper together. So before you squash down any folds on the back, let's say, it's also always recommendable to just turn these hexagon so they are locked, because that tightens the folds. So just like that. Well, it's not super surprised. My hands are a little bit sweaty at the moment, so it's it has an effect on the paper. So if you're out in the sun folding, then it's not advisable to fold much, because sweaty hands are never good for the paper. It begins to get very soft and doesn't hold the shapes very well. Okay, and this process we just repeat on the others. Folds here, so we're going to do the same here. Just add these rhombus twists, both of them at the same time. And here now, because this hexagon twist is completed already, the paper wants me to fold another one of these hexagon, but of these rhombi shapes, but I'm not going to. Well, I just make it a triangle twist here. So. So you see something is forming here is actually the beginning of another hexagon twist, and we're just putting the paper in the right place to get it out of the way, actually. So now we can flatten everything very nicely. Zack. That's that, and we're just going to repeat everything another 4 times. So that's a perfect opportunity to get a sip of your drink, if you have one. Actually, I have to. Sorry. Refreshing. Oops. Okay. Where were we? There. Okay. So so don't let you get tricked. Let's say, because there's another fold that's very closely related to the rhombus twist. That is the open back hexagon twist. which we will not use here, but you can use it in conjunction with these papers if you want to. But it gets a little bit more complicated if you do. Not much, but it is different. So, adjusting the hexagon. And you see it's quite a slow process. I usually fold this within an hour or so, including folding the grid, which is the most annoying part, actually. Yeah, some things have to be done. So again, it's not super precise here, but it's only for demonstration purposes. So where were we? Again, folding these rhombuses one way or the other. It's really a matter of practice. At some point of time, you will see where they have to go. It's another reason why I'm not pre-folding these shapes, because I think it's well, maybe some people will find it silly, but I find it stupid to pre-crease because it's yeah, how to say, it prevents you from seeing how to fold these without pre-creasing, and that way you understand much more about the tessellation, and then you can come up with your own designs very quick. So, does anyone have a question which I could answer while I'm folding the rest of this tessellation here? So, So again, hexagon twists are the most important and the most helpful tool in a tessellator's toolbox, at least on triangle grids, because they don't work very well on square grids, of course. So, and then another two, so we actually didn't need this paperclip very much. And then we're already almost done here, because that is the last set of rhombi that I want to fold for this demonstration at least. John is asking what I can do next. This cube tessellation, which is another design of mine, which is actually the same kind of design, but with a slightly different arrangement of these rhombies. So it makes the illusion of a cube. I think I could do it next time. I'm not going to do this today because there's some things I have to do tonight, let's say this night, which will keep me awake for a couple of hours. So, but it's a good idea. I can do that next time. So now we're basically done. All that's missing is if there is a triangular flap, let's say, so a flap that can open to a triangle, then we squash it down. You cannot have these flaps because what happens is that they open, so they fringe in some sense. If you open them and squash them, they are a lot denser, and that keeps the border together. Nope. So the camera is out of focus again, just because of the autofocus feature. I certainly would call it a bug, but it's called a feature. But anyhow. So that was the last one. If you want, you can add these hexagon twist here, but it doesn't matter much because it's so close to the border. If you want, it adds some extra stability, but it also adds some extra folds here, so you have to just tuck them under. If you want it all, it really doesn't matter much. I've done that here in this tessellation, as you can see. I've added all these extra hexagon twists, which I'm not gonna do here. Yeah, and that's basically this tessellation. So you see it's just plain rhombii. That's exactly the reason why I called it that. Of course, it's an original design by Joel Cooper, who called it, yeah, he didn't actually give it a name, but it's a very old design, basically the basis of all the Flexstone designs. So if you have a good grasp of this one, you can come up with your own designs quite easily. So in the end, before I say goodbye, I'm gonna show you a little trick with how you can transform these centers. If you don't like, so if you're afraid of paper ripping, then you probably shouldn't look too close because it's a quite violent process, let's say. So what I'm gonna do is just put a finger in here, like I'm some 6-year-old and not understanding what I'm doing, and then pushing the paper to the other side. Yeah. And then I try to recover this hexagon shape here. Just by pushing in these edges. And you see it's a 3-dimensional structure, which can be flattened just by turning it, in this case, in clockwise direction. And then you get this little nice star shape. Yeah, you see these grout lines are become a little bit more invisible than they would be here. So this whole thing looks like a star. And if you want, you can add some decoration to the central hexagon, but I don't think I'm going to show you that. Yeah, a little tip here, what I usually do. So let's have a look first at the back side. You see this just these half twists here. Looks like a windmill. So a little tip, if you want to subdivide these, you can either use your fingernails if you have sharp ones. So the ladies would be in an advantage here. And just make pre-creases with your thumbnail by hand. Or I sometimes use the one side of a pair of scissors. to do that. It's one of the sharp things that make a scissor. Or you could use a knife. And then you have this, you probably don't see it, but it's like a mini grid pre-folded. You can use that, so you just fold these, fold these flaps inside or to the center. So the first few times this will be very imprecise, but it's just a matter of practice. Oops. And it's easier if you use a knife or something to kind of pre-crease. Yeah, you see it's not very precise, this one here. But I hope you get the idea behind that. Yeah, if there are no questions, I think that's it. I thank everyone who was here tonight for this little experiment, because as you might have noticed, I'm not the best speaker or someone who likes to speak at all. So this is kind of a little bit of therapy for me too. Yeah, and then see you next time. Bye.